Right, I dig it. Thank you folks for joining us today with another session for our San Antonio Entrepreneurship Week. As normal, we're recording the session for those that are unable to make it, or for those that are unable to hear the whole session. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute. And this conversation is about some spectacular women in our local community. Margaret, who's the owner of Al's Gourmet Nuts, but now is taking on a new role with Lift Fund as the director of the Women's Business Center. And Ginger Diaz, the owner of Felice Modern, which is an amazing shop located at the Pearl, as well as a number of other, I believe you do pop-ups as well in a couple of different places and online.
Actually, yeah, our main shop is in Olmos Park, and then our second shop is at Pearl.
Yeah, so the Pearl shop is the pop shop. That's right. And then hopefully we'll be joined by another counterpart of ours, Selena Santibanez, who is the owner of GPS Drywall. And so today's conversation is really a number of things. It's a conversation about the pandemic. It's a conversation about being a female business owner, maybe a minority business owner in that same sense. And then overarchingly resilience. So overcoming the situations that we've been in from, seemingly a century as it's been, and making it work for our businesses, our employees, and then also still relating to our customers. So if at some point you see my dog, he's probably gonna.
I know. I was gonna say you got a little visitor there.
Yeah, he's my good boy. His name's Caesar. So, but yeah, so I'd love if you don't mind, just if you want to provide just kind of a brief intro on top of what I've done, then we can go ahead and just kind of move into the conversation. Whoever would like to go first.
All right, I guess I'll go first. Hi, I am Margaret Wilson-Anaglia, and Ryan, thank you so much for that introduction. I am the owner of Al's Gourmet Nuts. We are your resource for you want to brand your business in a unique style and way. We will do that for you. We're based here in San Antonio, and what I like to say is that we ship across the U.S., so we've hit all 50 states and abroad. And in addition to that hat, I am now proudly the new director of Lift Fund San Antonio Women's Business Center. And yes, thank you so much for that. And what that just means to me is that I'm bringing my passion for all things small business, woman-owned, supporting and helping and building our community to make our business community stronger. So for me, I used to always introduce myself as a domestic engineer, an entrepreneur. My youngest graduated a couple of weeks ago, so I no longer have to be a domestic engineer. That means stay-at-home mom in translation. But I guess sometimes that's a never-ending battle. But I think when I introduce myself now, I am that business connector. I am the community. 81 billion, or there's a billion number out there that is what small business contributes to America. So what we know for sure, we are the core and base of small business. So for me, as a small business owner, and also now being the director of the Women's Business Center with Lift Fund, brings all those things that are important to our community, which is small business, which is the core of our community.
And hi, I'm Ginger Diaz, co-owner of Felice Modern. I own it with my husband, Mario Diaz. He's more of the behind the scenes design guy of some of our products and our website and other items. And we started in 2017 as a shop in Olmos Park. Actually, we're actually in city of San Antonio. We're just on that border between Olmos Park and San Antonio. So, and then we were there for a year before we started, a year and a half maybe before we started our website. And then second year, we had the opportunity to have the second shop at the Pearl. And we're just still going with the website. And we just did a check yesterday about all of our staff, and it's something I'm really important, really proud of, because when we started, well, I've said this before in a talk we did, but I was so fearful to hire, just had never been anyone's boss, and being responsible for someone else's livelihood is was such a scary thing. But now we're up to 24 team members, and I take a lot of pride in that. And I've actually gotten the most fulfillment out that part of the job, the team development and the people that I get to work with. I have the best team, definitely in town, if not the world.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to have both of you on right now. And I guess in starting the conversation, what I'd like to kind of think about, one of the common themes that we've had in a few of the sessions is sort of value versus feature in terms of marketing. Oftentimes we can talk about all the features that make us really great, but there's an inherent value behind what you provide, which really is what resonates with the customers. And so having been in business for a while, both of y'all, I'm kind of wondering how did you figure out what people were actually buying? Because yeah, sure, they're buying maybe nuts in one sense, or maybe, gifts in another sense, but is that really what they're buying?
Yeah, I'm not a big consumerist person. I don't buy a lot of things, but the things I noticed for myself, the things that I buy all centered around a few areas in life, and really just one area. When you really melt it all down, is connection with others or community. Just think about when you're buying a gift, it's usually someone graduated, or they're having a baby, or it's their birthday, or they're down, you want to pick them up. It's very people focused. And yes, people buy for themselves too, but sometimes that's also very connected. Oh, bless you, Margaret. But yeah, sometimes that's also very people focused, because it's about a memory or something that reminds them of something from their childhood. Or so I know retail can get kind of painted with this brush of capitalist or consumerist, and there is that element to it for sure. But our tagline from the beginning has been art, life, fun, because we feel like most of the things that we carry and care about are things around those three areas of life.
And Ginger, I would definitely agree with you. For us, it's about the experience. We always, from the start of this business, starting in 2000, it's how do you differentiate yourself? What do you bring to the table? I mean, for us, you could buy a gift online. You can buy it in person. We can go to our major mega superstores. So from the beginning, it was like, well, what makes us unique? And for us, it's about, I always call it the value added services. And it's about the experience. It's how do you make people feel? Do people care about the product? You care about the product, how you look at it. Most of us will eat with our eyes. We see it first. And then after we taste it, we're like, wow. We have people who come up to us still, 21 years later and say, I really don't like nuts, but I love your product. Or I hated cinnamon. I love this cinnamon product. Oh my God, how did you do a lavender? So it's things like that. So it's finding that emotional connection and making people feel good. And it's something as simple as a thank you. And I think we have, and this is even before the pandemic. I mean, I love that, one of the fast food restaurants, it's my pleasure. Well, we've always said that, thank you, come back. We appreciate you. Every order that comes in, we say thank you for the great order. I had somebody say, I only ordered $15 from you. If that's a great order, what do you really consider? And we explained to him that every order we get, and by the way, we did this via text message, every order we get is a great order, because we know you have a choice. And that person orders now every holiday from us. And it's a small, and believe it or not, it's usually under $50. But he's like, I'm happy to contribute to a family-owned business, a local business. So we bought value, we appreciated that value, and we let him know, and we let him know why. And he's a lifelong customer. And the last story I want to share with that is when I was in the arts and crafts market, going to the Dallas market, we went to this particular vendor, and I said, we only have a small order from you. It's under $300. He says, look, I'd rather have 1,000 customers who are ordering $200 or $300 from us than having one large customer that would pull out. What we know for sure, all 1,000 customers aren't going to leave us at one time. So for us, when we think of value and how we appreciate our customers, no matter how small or how large you are, you're special for us.
I think the other part is to jump on that. What Margaret said is that I think the coolest thing about the younger generation is how much they care about who's behind the product
Yes.
and the social impact of what they buy.
Yes.
It's definitely been an awakening. I mean, I'm almost 45, so you know, when I was in my 20s, I never thought about who made what I wore or what I bought. I never really crossed my mind. So I think it's really cool that this younger generation asks more questions and thinks about it more.
Good point.
They're more small business focused.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's you know, one of the things it kind of brought up in my head was this resonation with your customer, right? And really bringing about that sense of community, that they're involved in some capacity. But for yourself, starting the business, I mean, I don't know, some people maybe inherently know like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a business owner. But for many people, that's not necessarily how they got there. So what drew you to that point? What made you say, you know what, this is maybe the community I want to build, or this is the product I want to get around? Or, I mean, you're creating all these great instances for your customers, but what made you want to create this for yourselves, I guess, or for, you know, what made you want to build this stanchion in the community?
I'll let Margaret go first this time.
Well, my story is real simple. I'm that accidental entrepreneur. I mean, I started off literally selling hammocks from Mexico. And because I thought, oh my God, I love these hammocks. They were inexpensive. Started selling at arts and crafts events. And that was actually, now everybody calls it a side hustle or a gig. I was literally working for the city of San Antonio, and I needed something creative outside of economic development, which is what I was doing. Started selling on the weekend, met this gentleman with this particular product, and I'm giving him great advice. He's like, honey, I'm retired. I don't need to grow this business. And I jokingly said, hey, if you ever sell it. And a year later, he said, oh, by the way, I want to sell it. I was like, oh, okay. No manufacturing experience, no sales and marketing in the area of food, but I knew that the product was excellent. So I didn't have this great master plan. I'm going to be shameful and say I didn't even have a business plan. I just knew that I purchased this. He actually gave us one price. I'm like, no, we can't do that, because my attitude is, if I lose it, I wouldn't be able to get my money back. You know, I was astute enough to keep on the revenue part of it. But part of that, I knew that it was a great product, and it was a perfect time in my life. You know, first baby is coming along. So I was like, okay. And I'm an older mom, so I'm a 40 plus mom. So I knew I didn't want to continue my 60-hour plus week job for the city of San Antonio. So I literally dove into this business, and actually the first 10 years really did it on a part-time basis, and the other 10 years have been doing it full time. So I like to say that I'm this accidental entrepreneur, but in truth be known, all the skills that I acquired throughout the years have made the business run. And what is that main skill? It's passion and enjoying what I do. Because trust me, on those very hard days, I had to ask myself, oh, that McDonald's job could maybe do me well. I can move and do that. I could do this, or I could do that. I could go back to the city. I could do that. But then what brought joy to my heart is, you know, the product and the response, you know, from the people. And just because we can say, you know, we're family owned, we didn't buy a franchise. This was started literally from scratch. We bought a machine and 4 flavors. That is it. That was it, what we bought. And everything else we had to build from scratch. So I like to call myself the the accidental entrepreneur who just has passion for what she does. And I said, if you tell by this gorgeous body, I love to eat. So food is, hey, that's just that was just my passion. And that's right up. So I didn't have a master plan, love for what I do. And I had a very healthy respect for small family owned business.
I have to agree with Margaret. I didn't start out with a business plan either. don't do like us, because that usually doesn't work out. It's kind of like my sister who got married at 19. I'm like, that doesn't usually work out, but they're still married. They're the exception, not the rule. Yeah. I think and I also don't have a 5-year plan. And I think that people can get caught up in planning, and and lose sight of action. So I think you need a balance there. Yes, you need planning, and I actually wish I had known about Lift Fund and launch and all of that in the beginning, because I had to learn a lot of stuff the hard way. I had to pay for my mistakes myself as I went. Knowing what I know now, I would get more people around me that had already made some of those mistakes and could help steer me away from them. But you don't know what you don't know. And I think some of the fear, some of the hesitation people have in starting a business is that they have to know everything before they begin and have everything planned out. And it's also a form of procrastination. Like you're at some point, it's that 80-20 rule of like, if you're 80% prepared, you need to go for it. You're never going to be 100% prepared. By the time you are, the landscape has changed and you're now no longer prepared. So you just got to jump in and put your all into something.
And Ryan, can I add to that is that I know both Jen and I are laughing about not having a plan. It is good to have a plan. It is better to have a plan. And when we say a plan, we're not talking about a 30-page plan that's pristine, like she said, the 80-20 rule. I say even the 60-40 rule, because you need to, Steve Harvey has that whole launch that he did is just jump. And by having some type of plan is good. We have so many resources around us, Launch SA, which is part of the Lift Fund, STBC, all of these different agencies and groups that are around that are free as well. So a plan is good. It will save your soul from some late nights. And I like to call it my opportunity for growth check that I had to write that I didn't want to write because I just made a mistake. But the good part is that we can own up to those mistakes. And for me, I always say, if you don't make any mistakes, you're not growing.
And you're not trying anything. And I did find later, once I did connect with other people in the business community, that what they call the business plan, I did have parts of that. I just didn't call it that. I had different plans for how to do what I needed to do. And then those things adjusted over time. But I will say that if I had a better idea and more peers that I'd reached out to in the beginning, I probably would have seen my kids more those first 2 years. I probably would have aged less. It just made it harder.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, call me biased over here because you're an amazing entrepreneur, but I don't know that either one of y'all have aged in any way that would make you look older.
It's all there.
So, you talk about, well, I guess I'll try to target one question first and we'll see if I can remember the second one later. But as you didn't have this plan, how did you know what success looked like? And then how did that evolve over time? I mean, was it like, hey, we want to make $1 million selling this? Or is it just like, I want to sell to this amazing customer, and that, just seeing those people interact every week or every day or something, that was fulfilling enough? And then, I guess assuming that was kind of where it started, maybe it wasn't. What did that version of success evolve into, or did it evolve?
Well, I had heard something from Amy Poehler, and I don't remember where she said it, but she said, if, at some point, obviously after your basic needs are met, if you can do work that you enjoy around people that you enjoy, that is success, and the rest of it's gravy. And I really think about that a lot when we're hiring, when we're choosing what vendors we work with, when we're evaluating opportunities. We've had opportunities to expand to other locations, and we've said no because at some point after 2, your focus gets spread and your lifestyle is going to change. Like if we had this opportunity to go to this really cool development in Houston and one in Austin, and we've said no to those because I just don't want to live on 35 or I-10. It's a lifestyle decision, and I also don't want to launch it without me being involved as much as I would need to be involved to get it going. So I think you have to set boundaries for what kind of life you want to lead. But then the question was more about how did you decide what numbers to hit?
A little bit more towards just what did that evolution of success look like? Like maybe at the beginning it was, hey, this is cool and I just want to do this. And then did it morph into, now I want to have 15 stores or something? Sometimes that's not the case, but
Yeah, we started out real just focused on what does it take to break even every week? What's that number? And then adjusting our hours and our product offering to get that number just to break even in the beginning. And then over time, expanding and having higher goals than just breaking even. But in the beginning, it was just all about like, how do we not go under super fast? I also think what time of year you start can matter. We started in August and it was right before Christmas. So our first year was only 4 months or September, October. Yeah, 4 months. And those were the best 4 months of retail. So it gave us a good kickstart to last through the slow January month, and then some slow summertime.
Very good. And I think for us, it was a little bit different in that I started more on a part-time basis. I always say as an entrepreneur, you want to break even, you actually want to make money, you want to keep the lights on. My biggest draw, I'm going to be honest with you, was a lifestyle. I had little people, that's what I call them, they were little people, and I'm all about the quality of life. I've had, what is the old saying, when you die, nobody asks how many hours you work or what did you did. People think about family, and you go to an event or a funeral and they talk about family. Not many people talk about work. They may say how they appreciated you, but you talk about family. So my perspective was a little bit different. Having kids later in life, my focus is about the quality of life that I spent with my kiddos. Suffice it to say, we in my house, the boys are now 17 and 19. They know October, November, December are really hard. That we're going to work 20 hours a day. It's going to be crazy November and December. So with that in mind, I had a swap out of I can work really crazy hours for 2 months out of the year to make it work. So it was about quality of life, and then it was about the revenue generating, and it was about the revenue generating above break even. And because we didn't have a brick and mortar, we like to say we were Amazon brilliant before Amazon, is that it was all online. I mean, that was our target market with our customers. They were online, but we did a lot of shows. We did like 60 events a year. That's a lot of shows. So we were more on the special event side. And then that's how our customers got to know us. So we were very fortunate in that. And those were customers were not looking for a retail storefront to go to. So we smartened up probably about that 4th, 5th year. We're like, okay, we're not going to have a retail storefront. So because of that, this is the way we have to market ourselves. We didn't need to waste our time. We would get advertisers coming to us on a weekly basis. We're like, we don't have a retail storefront. And our item is also an impulse buy as well. So we were going to make more money selling in the market that we chose to. So for us, it was more organically grown, but it was also about the lifestyle that we wanted to lead. So lifestyle and then revenue, I would probably say was kind of second or so.
That makes a lot of sense.
Smart. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry.
That's so smart to have that model and not have the fixed costs of the brick and mortar, because you can be more flexible and go where people are, especially until you test your concept out. I'm sure after you've tested it out, if you wanted to have brick and mortar, you knew what your numbers would be and how to do it. But for people who are starting out and sometimes they jump straight into signing a lease or building out a space, it's a lot riskier, speaking from experience. And then when something like COVID happens, there's some fixed costs that you can't shut down. Yeah.
And Ryan, do you mind me adding on to that? I, before even my, position as director of Women's Business Center, what I, coaching and mentoring others, I've always told people, don't start off with that brick and mortar if you can. Test it out. There's so many before COVID, of course, and even now, I want to say post-COVID for all intents and purposes, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to do pop-ups. Pop-ups are the way to go. You can it's just like food trucks. Think about it. They're testing their restaurant concept and they're testing it with the lowest overhead. So I tell people, especially if you have a product, test it out, do some pop-ups, and you will be amazed at what is important, what sells, what doesn't sell. And a quickie is everybody told us, oh, you need to do something sugar-free, do a sugar-free product. So we tried it. We wasn't that satisfied with it, but we put it out there. We had to charge more for it. Lo and behold, They said they wanted it. They didn't want to buy it. That's not what they really wanted. So people
Yeah.
ask us all the time, do you do sugar free? No, but you know what? We can refer you to some great places. Sugar free is good. I mean, I have a young son who is diabetic, so I get it. But also, the market didn't dictate that. I'd say maybe 1% of our customers will actually buy it. Now, we'll have maybe 10% to 20% will ask for it, but 1% is buying it. So it wasn't for us, and because of the scale we were under, that was not something. So again, by doing a pop-up type of event style, that lets you know what your market is.
Mhm.
That's really great to hear. I mean, the test and iterate model, I think, is extremely important, especially when you start out. And I guess I want to, man, so many questions come up with you. So if I take a look at the start, I mean, both of y'all, I'm assuming, you didn't imagine, having a storefront necessarily at the beginning, or, you didn't imagine, maybe you did, having a business for, so long or any of that. And Margaret, your case, you purchased the business from someone else. You only had 4 flavors. Now you have, what is it, 18?
Over 15. Over
15,
flavors,
a
yeah.
little over 15. And Ginger, when you started, you were starting with probably a certain amount of products, and now you have like a vast amount of product. So how did that evolution come about? Like, there's already an associated brand, Al's Gourmet Nuts, right? And now it's Margaret, and that may be different, right? So what did you change about your vibe or your position or your product offering? What did you change? Were you comfortable with that? Or was it just a matter of, hey, this is what the customers want, so we're going to do it? Or, this is the direction I want to take it, so we're going to do it.
It was a combination of opportunities, and that opportunity was, what do you want? We had these 4 flavors, which were basically, it was a cinnamon pecan, almond, and a hazelnut, and a peanut. So it was it. And what we did is, our focus was always, how do we differentiate ourselves from the others? I mean, there are a lot of nuts out there. Let's just face it, pun intended. But there's a lot of different flavors and products out there.
It took me a minute.
Come on, Ginger, work with me now. I know my kids would be like, "Mommy, leave the jokes alone. That's not your area. Step away." But what we wanted to do is make sure that we kept the quality ingredients, and we wanted local ingredients. We wanted fresh. So for us, we decided to stay on that path. The simple flavor of the German chocolate pecans and almonds. One of our clients says, "You know what? I would like to have a German chocolate cake." And I was like, I'm not even a chocolate person, but that sounds really good. And literally, we went back into the kitchen and toiled and came up. And now we have this it's called German chocolate pecans and almonds. And we say it tastes like a German chocolate cake. So for us, we stayed true with the local and the fresh ingredients, just like the lavender. We were at Becker Vineyard doing a special event, and we wanted them to actually sample and pair up their wines with our different flavors. I thought that was a really simple request. I really did. Well, they had a staff of about 15 at the time. They're like, "Well, we're all over the place. Well, can't you just come up with a flavor for us?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we came up with the Becker port wine, which we don't have on the menu now, but we also came up with a lavender pecan and almond. And again, the lavender, because they have lavender fields there. Lavender, and I didn't know, who knew lavender was grown in the Texas Hill Country. Go figure. There's a whole Texas Lavender Association. The honey that we get is from our local beekeeper. So again, everything was fresh and local. So for us, that path is dictated by what local ingredients are available and what are our customers asking. Spicy, of course, we live in San Antonio. We should have had a spicy one from the beginning, but we have a spicy pecan, and we have a spicy peanut that we do. So again, it's driven combination of by customer, also our taste buds as well. So that's what we really want to do. We wanted to differentiate ourselves of what was already out there. You don't see that many lavender products. So you're not going to see that Becker port wine or this or that. So we wanted to put ourselves in that unique tasting position. And as I said earlier, it's all about the experience. So, what goes well with a bottle of wine? Gourmet nuts and kettle corn. Hey, you can't beat that. So, it's about that experience.
I wanna jump in with one more piece to it, Margaret.
Mhm.
So again, Al's Gourmet Nuts, Margaret, right? How much transition was it for the brand, the owner? Like, was there a lot of stuff to figure out when you took over?
Actually, I'm going to tell you, the owl is actually us. The company that we purchased it for was called Fruity Tooty or Fruity Nutty or something like that. And I already knew we weren't going to do that. The funny part about the owl, and everybody wonders about that. I always say Al is my best half. That's my husband. We took it when we looked at the name. What do we want to name it? At the time, actually at the time we didn't even have the one child, so we weren't going to name it after the boys. But we're like, okay, what name fits better? We're going to name it Margaret because Margaret has 8 letters in it, and it's in the middle of the alphabet. And it's two, and believe it or not, people will misspell Margaret all the time. You will be very surprised. So we said, what about Al? Now, I always call my husband Albert, but his family calls him Al because I was like, what do you want me to call you? Because I've been calling you Albert. They're like, it doesn't matter. So we said, what about Al's Gourmet Nuts? And he's like, do you really want to do that? I said, well, A is in the beginning of the alphabet. You can't go wrong. We're going to be in alphabetical order. And at the time, Yellow Pages, I'm telling my age when I say Yellow Pages, that we were in the Yellow Pages and we were going to be at the top. And that is really simple. That was about marketing. And we also knew that we want to sell the product corporately. You weren't going to be selling Fruity Tooty. That didn't give you any elegance. And the colors were purple and a fuchsia and a pink color. And that's why you see Al's Gourmet Nuts, you see the gold and the black, corporate dignity, it's simple elegance. And that's really the marketing. I know people are like, oh, okay. So no, we didn't buy Al's Gourmet Nuts. That is us.
That's awesome. So for Ginger, your start and your evolution for your product, how did that manifest towards the brick and mortars that you're in now? Again, I'm sure that where you started with the products that you have, maybe you've had to cut some that didn't pan when you went into your brick and mortar, or maybe you doubled down on a few and now you have 8 different colors of the same thing. I'm not sure, but how did that evolution happen?
Oh, so the original goal was to sell local artist work, and before we opened, we talked to friends around about people who were in the art world, people who were in the retail world. What do you think of this concept? We feel like it's hard to find good local artist work. It's hard to find them, but there's so many out there. But what if there was a great place where you could go and find it and you didn't have to wait for a market or a fair? And or like we love to go to the Stacy auction, the students work, and a lot of the work in our house is from there. But so that was how it started, and luckily from a few people we got the feedback of, that's great, but you need repeatables, things that people want to come in. They're not going to on a Monday have to go buy a piece of art. If you want to have things that people come in and they need a card or something, and then they're introduced to the art. And so we call the other categories the gateway to art collecting, that you came in to get a candle because your candle burned out, or because you need a housewarming gift, and hopefully you're introduced to a new artist while you're there. And if not, you just come and get the candle, that's cool too. You're still supporting us being able to be open and show local artists work. So that's how it started. And then all the categories kind of just spun out from like, what do we look for online that we can't find locally? So at the time my kids were younger and I was putting on birthday parties for them, and I would go to Etsy and try to find some unique party supplies, so that it wasn't just like something from Party City. I just want it to be a little special. And so that's one of the categories we added in there is party supplies you can come and touch and feel and see all at once. And then all the other categories kind of came out from like walking around our home, seeing what we love, what do we wish we could buy locally, what do we buy on the trip that's not in San Antonio, what do we buy online that we can't find here? We brought the dog serape here because I'd seen it from a vendor in Mexico and brought them to San Antonio, and now you see them everywhere, but at the time it was just like finding out who made it. And like, I think I found them on Instagram and just DM them like, hey, do you wholesale? And we're their first wholesale customer in Texas. So yeah, just finding things in so many different ways, but it's really more about what do you want personally. Where it kind of went left was in that first year when people would ask us like, why don't you carry this, or can you carry this? And we try to appease everybody. And what happened was our scope kind of creeped a little too far. And luckily another friend had an honest conversation with me about it. And I really appreciated him being so honest and saying, y'all started out with this really clear vision, and then like over the last few months I've noticed that you're trying to like please too many people, and you would do well to like bring it back to what you really love. Because when you sell something that you don't really love, that you're just trying to do for somebody else, it doesn't translate in the overall mix and the overall edit. And so over the last year we've cleared out those items, and we are just focusing on what really makes us Feliz Modern. And it's not just me, it's other people that I go to in our team to get their feedback as well.
I appreciate the candor on that. So both of y'all have mentioned having little ones and starting your business. I'm curious Margaret, you've already talked about how so much of the business development also cruxed around lifestyle because of your children. So, for both of y'all, is this something that you foresee like familially passing forward, or is it something? I know in certain cases parents are like, no, don't do this, do another route, don't follow my shoes. Like, how do you foresee that, or what does that relationship look like? Especially y'all's businesses are even so family oriented. Even your co-founders are essentially family too. So where does that lead?
I'll let Margaret go.
Okay. Yeah, for me now, it's a perfect example. Transitioning, or actually transitioned already to my full-time role with Women's Business Center, is that I've now had my husband and the boys to take over the day-to-day operations. The good news is that they've already been doing a lot of it. Now they're just doing, I'd say 100% of it. That was always, for us, was the goal. Visiting Italy, which is where my husband's father is from, we saw a lot of these family-owned shops that were like 4th and 5th generation. And a lot of them were like little hole in the walls. They were probably, if they were making $50,000 a year, they were lucky, some of them, but they were happy. It was all about family. And we jokingly said, wow, that would be really cool to have a family business to pass down to. Fast forward to getting there sooner than later. I can't tell you 100% yes, that's what the boys want to do. They're in college now. So we're going to see. And we've given them the option. If they want it, great. And if they don't, actually, my feelings aren't going to be super uber hurt, because I told them from as young as I can remember to say, find something that you love doing, that you are passionate about. Virginia Moody, God rest her soul, she used to always say, if it makes your socks roll down and roll back up, it's a good thing. and I tell them that now. And I definitely want my kids to be, educated so they can handle all aspects of the business from A to Z. And there are things that as parents and entrepreneurs that we can teach them, but there are other things that they need to learn. And we can talk about several family businesses that were passed on to the children and they failed because the kids were not totally prepared, what I call outside of the business, by others. So we're at that point now where they are working the business. And because of COVID also, that's really taken a turn for our business. It's made us look at our business very differently. And I think that any business owner who's not thinking that another COVID could occur, they're kidding themselves. So for us, that is a conversation. It's moving forward. Where do we go from here? If another COVID occurs, what place are you going to be in? Are we going to be in a great place financially? Those are a lot of questions. So, and what I think that's really awesome with the kids of today is they've seen their parents now go through something like COVID. We've had 2008, we've had 9/11. Those have been life changing for businesses. And I don't care if you own a business from A to Z, you were impacted by from 9/11, 2008 downturn, and now COVID. So a lot of these young people, as you said, Ginger, they want to know, are you local? Are you small? Are you family owned? Where are you sourcing from? I'm like you, Ginger, and I'm much older than you are. I didn't think about it. I'm like, okay, that looks really good, or I want it. It was just more on desire. So now you do have a different mindset of people shopping. So I would like, yes, would I like my kids to take over? Absolutely. Would I love them to have the same passion? Absolutely. And the only way that they're gonna be able to run a business successfully is to have that passion. So that would be the end goal. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not gonna fall out. Like I told them, mom's gonna retire, mom and dad's gonna retire. I like to call it BC, before children. We had a life before you guys came along. So after we retire, after the business, we'll have another life. So we're okay with this. Either way, we're gonna be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need like another 10 to 20 years to figure that out. I mean, I've got one 12-year-old who's like going on 20, and I have one 17-year-old going on 7. So like, I don't know. We'll see where but I'm kidding, kind of, but they have such different interests right now, and they see the back end and how much work it is, and none of them really have an interest in that right now, and they definitely want to have a different initial beginning, I think. But my dad used to tell me, because I grew up here, and he was like, oh, I can't wait to leave San Antonio. I'm just gonna out of here as soon as I graduate. I'm out of here. And then, or New Braunfels, I went to New Braunfels later in high school, and he's like, you'll be back before you're 30. I'm like, I will not. I'm moving to Europe, and I'm moving to Chicago, and I did for my 20s. And then right around 28, 29, lo and behold, I moved back, and I never heard the end of it, because all of a sudden, like what seemed like I would never just live in this little town, I'm gonna go see the world. All of a sudden you start to appreciate the things about it. So maybe, and I also saw, I think part of what made me confident enough to start the self-employment journey is that I saw my parents do it, and at the time thought, oh my gosh, that's so much work, that's not for me. And then the older you get, sometimes things that you thought were not for you, all of a sudden you get to see, oh, this lets me be able to go to my kids' play, or this lets me be able to be room mom sometimes, like I can, people are always like, well, you work for yourself, so you can pick and choose your hours. I'm like, you totally can. You get to pick whichever 80 hours of the week you want to work. It's up to you.
Yes. I'm using that, Ginger, by the way.
Okay? Use it. It's accurate. Yes, I can leave in the middle of the day, and then I need to make it up at midnight. Yeah.
That's why you're getting an email from me at 2 and 3 in the morning. They're like, what? As a PTA and room mom, why are you sending out those emails? Because that volunteer work I was doing during the day, I had to go back at the end of the day, rolling into the next day to make it happen. Yeah.
I think that's like a perfect way of saying it. We have another mentor that she's in the bar business, and she would talk about how she would come out of the bar with all of her books, like for accounting and what have you. And like a friend that, saw her walking out, like, oh, what are you doing there? Like, why are you carrying all that stuff? She's like, well, I own this business. She was like, oh, I just thought you owned it. I didn't think you did anything for it. It's like, nope, that's not how it works, right? Like,
it's so funny people's perceptions of what it's like. They just see our life on Instagram or in chats like this, and they really don't see the sacrifices that not just you but your family are making in the background. There's been many Sundays where I see my friends that are at the park with their family, especially the first 2 years when I didn't have enough staff to take Sundays off. And my kids would be like, why can't we go to the park? Why can't we go to the zoo on a Sunday? So there's all that stuff that people don't see in the background, that where Margaret is now and where I am now, is different than where we started, and they still don't even see the parts that still are going on now.
Ginger, I used to tell my kids, oh, we go during the week to the park and to the amusement park because there's less crowd and you don't have to wait.
Yeah.
And you could swim and you don't have a lot of people.
We weren't even doing that though.
You know, but it was
We weren't even doing that. No, there was a period there where they started to really hate my job because I was just gone a lot. That first year is just make it or break it. So I just really poured my all into it. And it's definitely, I enjoyed that year. There was a lot that came from that year, but it's not a sustaining lifestyle. You know, something you could do forever. You know.
And Ryan, let me share. I have to share the story with you guys. And you're talking about sustaining that lifestyle. I have a wonderful dentist. I've been seeing her for over 30 years. That's how I'm telling my age a little bit there. But nevertheless, when I started with her practice, she was closed on Fridays. And she's a sole practitioner, which is unheard of, okay? And be closed on Friday. She took her last patient at 2-3 o'clock. So she was done by 5. So fast forward, her kids come along. She's off on Fridays. She's done by 3:30. I think she kind of got done by 3 at times. But what she did is she established her practice like that in the beginning. And I asked her about that. This is way BC before children. I said, why are you doing this? She goes, because I don't want to work till 6-7 o'clock. I don't want to work 12 or 15 hours. And I was like, oh, okay. And this woman always, until today, she has a wait list. She's phenomenal. Okay. She's a phenomenal dentist. But it's, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we forget and we are afraid of, shall we say, designing our business to meet our lifestyle because we're thinking, oh, the fear that we're going to miss out on that big sale or we're going to do that. And this woman has had this practice for over 30 years, probably almost 35 years now. And she has done what she needs to do. She didn't even accept insurance. You have to file your own insurance. And she still has a wait list. So what that tells me and reminds me as entrepreneurs, can we all do that schedule? No. But she tailored it to her lifestyle. And that's what made me remember to tailor it to my lifestyle with our kids. And yes, our kids, did they miss out? No, they didn't miss out on anything. They thought they did. But we had this schedule. Was it like the other parents? No. But you still didn't miss out on a whole lot. So I think you have to make that space where you're at. And I would say you have to not look out the window to the other entrepreneurs to see what they're doing. Because remember, everybody looks like they're doing better. It's kind of like they look like they have a better grass, but they have to mow it too. And you don't know how they're mowing it. They may be mowing it at 3 o'clock in the morning, where you're mowing it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's one of those things, that lessons that I learned that I'm able to share now is be who you are. Of course, you know the target market, you know all that with your business plan, getting help from your advisors and so forth. But in the end, what lifestyle do you want to lead? Do you want to, if you want to work 80 hours a week, God bless you. I don't want to keep doing that. But if you do want to work and get to where you're working 20 to 40 hours a normal hour work week, then fashion your business like that. Don't let everyone tell you, no, that's not impossible. Now, if you're running a fast food place or some restaurant that's open 24/7, 7 days a week, that's on you. And I think we all have to, we all have to remember that.
And also know that if you're in that period where you are working 80 hours a week, if you don't have a plan on how to get out of it, that's the problem. Like there are periods where we still have to work many late hours. And then there's periods where life is more normal now. And so I think knowing when you're in those seasons, that as long as it's not because you're not planning ahead staffing wise or revenue wise to not be like that forever, it's just for a season. Like Margaret saying, October through December, they know that they're going to go all in, and then they get to coast a little bit in other months and have make up for that family time that they're missing out in October through December.
Absolutely.
I think it's really interesting to talk about. So I grew up, my dad is an entrepreneur, or I mean, he's retired now, but when I back before social media, I didn't have comparison to go with. I was just like, oh, I guess this is what we do. Like we just hop on the truck and go fill up vending machines. It didn't click that there was another answer. Like the park wasn't I never heard my friends talk about park. It was just like, oh, okay, well, you're a kid,
Yeah.
I'm a kid. Like, all of a
That's
sudden,
that
it's made
social
so many
media,
comparison
yeah.
points. Yeah,
Burn that social media.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
as you think about the struggles that you've had, and obviously this pandemic has been quite the struggle, and Margaret, I know that you've gone through a number of different, call it, universal downturns for, the country, if you will. What maybe we'll tie these two things together. What kind of mistakes have you made, and did those prepare you for overcoming this, or is each sort of systemic breakdown of the world, is it just a new challenge? You're just like, I don't know, we're just figuring it out, just ford the river and hopefully not sink.
Do you want?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I would say, Ryan, it was all of the above. If you want to check off on the checklist, it's all of the above from the perspective of and I don't like to call it a mistake. I like to call it an opportunity for growth. Each opportunity for growth is an opportunity for you to learn from it. So next time you know better, so you do better. If you're in business and if you're living, there are going to be opportunities for growth no matter what you're doing. Of course, no one could have imagined, COVID. This is kind of one of those, they keep calling what a once in a lifetime or a 500-year type event. I'm hoping I won't be alive then anyway, but it's one of those things to say that it is what it is. You can prepare yourself as much as you can, but know that if you're in business and in life, things are going to occur, and you decide, how you grow better, and you grow stronger, and you look at the weaknesses. And I guess one of the biggest thing is asking for help. That is not in my spoke. I think probably most entrepreneurs hate asking for help, but asking for help, leaning on the help that's out there. And I see Crystal Darby, who's a wonderful business advisor, my business advisor, asking for help, and listening. You can ask for help but not listen, and I've been guilty of that. I have to say that because I just didn't want to hear it. But I think the biggest thing is asking for help. Know that you need help. Open to new ideas. My first business advisor at UTSA, one of the things David, one of the things he said to me, he says, are you selling nuts like at the gas station? And I looked at him all cross-eyed and kind of like, what the hell are you talking about? And he said something to me very poetic, and I use that advice now. He says, if you're not selling nuts 2 bags for $1, why are you presenting yourself like that? Because I was trying to figure out how to have a sale and do that. So we no longer, I've been doing this now for what, 10 years of no sales. We don't do sales. We like to call it value added. So for us, so that's one of those lessons learned of who you are and what you want to be. And even with this downturn in the economy, we're still not doing new sales. We're doing value added services that we're bringing to the table. Now, of course, I don't have a retail storefront, so we can operate differently. And our customer, our target market, they're not looking for the 50% off every Friday. Not with us. We've not taught them to do that. And that's not our base and our core of our business. So that whole part about failure is going to occur. It's just a matter of how you recover from it. My kids hear me say this all the time. The boys will roll their eyes. I said, honey, they talked about Jesus, so if they talk about you, it's okay. You're in really good company. You're in very good company. So don't even, you're going to be okay. And life is going to happen. And there are going to be some really negative things are going to happen. I used to think, hey, I'm living a good life. I go to church. I shouldn't have anything bad to happen. Oh, really? You live long enough, you're going to have some things come your way. Some worse than others. Some things are not as bad as you think they are. So I say that, yes, you are going to have those ups and downs. Get the support. And I think most important, besides your family, have a really good tribe around you that you can talk to, and they will tell you the truth. They will tell you, Margaret, you're crazy, and that idea is insane, but you go ahead and do it, but it is insane. they're really honest with you. And I have that tribe of people. And now I listen to them about 99% of the time. I have a product I wouldn't tell you about, a flavor. And it was insane, but I just was so like gung ho with it. It just didn't work. And I was like, they're like, we told you. But I was like, no, no. And I had a packaging idea. I sunk $5,000 into that, and that was crazy. But that was my crazy because I was told that it didn't work, but I was so passionate about it. But I think that's the fun part in hindsight. It's the fun part about being an entrepreneur. You could go down, I call it the crazy trail, but you can come off the crazy trail and get done what you need to get done. So that's my little anecdote about, just don't look at it as a complete failure, because if you do, it will paralyze you. Just look at it as an opportunity for growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many of those decisions and those mistakes do we make? When you mentioned the $5,000, I've made many of those mistakes. And the way I rationalize it to myself is that was my tuition for this semester of business school, real life business school. I just paid, just this spring, I paid $8,000 to my real life business school mistake. And it hurts. But whenever you look at it that way, of like, I wouldn't have learned that lesson without that $5,000 or 500 or whatever it is. Okay, now I learned that the mistake is just if I do it again and that tuition, like I flunked that semester and I didn't learn and I had to go pay for it again, So because right around, I guess two or 3 years ago, I was going to join business school and to go back and get an MBA because I felt so alone in the business making the decision making part of the business, and I just wanted to be around other people who were in it like I was. And luckily, I mean, nothing against business school, but I think for me, the better fit was finding a good business peer group, because that was people who were already in it and we weren't in the theory anymore. Like we had left that station, we were out in the deep water, and these decisions not only affected us, but they affect our employees. And so I didn't have time for the evolution or theory of economics. I needed to know, like, what do I do when X, Y, and Z, and to be around people who have varying experience levels, who had maybe not been in that exact circumstance, but they have another experience they could share that was similar enough to I could help me think through how to get out of this solution. And I pay about, I think it's $5,000 a year to be in that group. And I guarantee you I save more than I pay by being in that group.
Mm-hmm.
That's really incredible. Is that EO or?
Yes, Entrepreneurs Organization.
Awesome.
And they also have a launch program. So the main EO is for more established businesses, but they have this program called Launch for people who are starting out, and it's a pathway towards EO, and they get the same kind of training and peer-led support. And the people in Launch are not necessarily young startups or never run businesses before. They're just on maybe their third business, and they are wanting to learn another way of doing things this time. A lot of people in EO will build a business, sell it, and start over and get back on the slide.
I think it's extremely important to have a community that surrounds you as a business owner. And Margaret, you talked a bit about that. And now Ginger, you've mentioned you have your group too. I'm wondering, were there any, in terms of being a female entrepreneur, historically, I think that it's been harder to find those examples, to look up to. Do you find yourself now being sort of the female that other women come up to and they're like, man, I want to be just like you, whereas perhaps you didn't have somebody to look at that time when you were younger? Or do you have any representations of owners that you've looked up to in that sense?
Yeah,
that's just another code word for being old.
You go first, Margaret.
Okay, you say age before beauty. No, just kidding. Okay, see, my jokes are getting better. No, I would say yes. There was, as far as other females that were out there, but quick story, and of course I have a story behind everything. When I was younger in high school, I did get selected for a particular opportunity, and it was because I was female and because I was black. So I went home, and mom kind of cuddled me and stopped talking to my grandmother, who I thought, oh, she's gonna give me all this wisdom. She says, "Baby, you're a female and you black. So what about it? If they didn't want you to be part of their group, do you really want to be a part of them? Do you want to be a part of someone who doesn't care for you?" And I was like, "Oh, that's not what I wanted to hear." But that lesson has carried me throughout my life. Didn't worry about if it was male or female. I wanted to work and be associated and be supportive with people who were going to be supportive and nurturing of me. If it was a woman, it was a bonus. If it was an African American, it was even more of a bonus. But for me, I needed to see, was that person going to come around and be supportive? I'm from San Antonio, born and raised, actually went to college here. And I love what you said, Ginger, earlier about I was going to get out of San Antonio. Heck, went to school here, got opportunity, more money to come to school here. And my job's all okay from San Antonio. So I just got to travel. But I say that to say that being here in San Antonio and the African American population is less than 7%. So we are that sub minority. So to find a female, an African American female, and somebody that was in retail, that was a whole lot of me having to look for. So what I in turn looked for people who were passionate about what they did. And I wasn't so focused on the industry. Giving a good example, my son's pediatrician, I met them when I was selling insurance. They were true two African American females, entrepreneurs, opened up a clinic on the east side of San Antonio because they were passionate about serving that community. They now have 5 clinics throughout San Antonio, very well successful. Dr. Diana Burns, who's on a ton of committees, both on the local and state and federal level. So I look for those strong personalities who were successful. And again, I didn't get so bogged down on, was it hard to find? And by having that mindset, I actually was able to find a lot more people who look like me and women as well. Because I'm like, I used to tell people, I'm not stalking you, but yes, I am. Because I wanted to learn, and this is before social media where you could go and Google someone. You had to literally go to where they were, here and hear them speak and so forth.
You had to legit stalk them.
Yeah, exactly. I was a legitimate stalker to some. So for me, it was wherever I went. I mean, I worked for Travelers Insurance Company. I think there were 5 Black women in our region, which is crazy. We had 300 plus salespeople. And I want to say less than 20, maybe 50. I don't think it was less than that, were actually African American, and very few were women. So I had to draw from whoever I could. My first strong, and wasn't really an entrepreneur, but strong woman, Carmen Velez, I remember her name. She's a finance director with the city of San Antonio. This woman, and like she said, there's no Latinos in risk management, but I hung on to her coattails and I learned from her. Nora Chavez was another one of those women. I don't do finance. Anybody who knows me knows I don't do that well. And that's not my strong suit. But these were women that were strong. They were in their field that I learned from. And it wasn't just about, or they entrepreneurs, they were leaders in their field. So I tell people now, get someone that's a leader, that's passionate in their field, learn from them. What did they go through? Not just the woe is me, the hard stuff. Can they tell you a funny story? Can they laugh at themselves? Do they have a good balance, or will they tell you the truth? And those are the people, to me, that you want to gravitate towards.
Yeah, and if you wait until the industry or the group looks like you, no, it will never will, because if you wait for that, for it to be full of women, it's who's going to be starting that, and that's definitely, it's very rare that you walk into business networking groups that look like the actual spread of male and female population, unless it's like a women's only group, and then it's also not representative of the actual population. So it's hard, and there's definitely some I think some mental barriers for some people to be part of a group that's and seems and it sometimes is an old boys club, and learning how to be a leader in a way that's still you know, if that is in that framework, great. I also love what women leaders bring to things, and that where they don't, and not all women, I mean, not all women are like this and not all men are not like this, but I really like the introduction of the full person in the workplace, that being welcome, and not leave your opinions or emotions or other things always at the door. That full person is actually what you want. You want the full story. Of course, yes, leave personal drama at home, but if someone's having a bad day, you can talk about that at work. It's going to be a much deeper understanding of that person versus this. I grew up in the corporate world in my 20s where it's just, you don't show that, just come in and be the most male, that's not even fair to men, but just like the most, professional, whatever that meant in the early 90s and, before, just, and I like that it's opening up to be a more full human experience than just keeping everything just monotone.
No, that's I like that explanation of it. I mean, I think it's probably fair to call it male in many senses. I mean, those are the television examples that we often get, and so it's not unfounded for to say that's what trickles down into how people act, right? So and I know the last time that we were having a similar conversation, you talked about having that empathy within the workplace for your employees. And I think that that's such a unique, well, it really shouldn't be, sadly, it shouldn't be unique, but it is unique in that we're expected to have this always on persona. And for y'all being, not only female entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs, like it seems like the bar is set unfairly higher in order to manifest or to be equated at equal in some senses. So that you're establishing that, I'm curious, how are you maybe molding, folding, building this next generation of, call it your employees, maybe it's entrepreneurs, or just setting the example for your peers in that sense too?
Wow, I actually think of being a woman in business as being an asset, or having, I have a child with special needs, and I tell him about how I think that all the struggles he's having are going to make him a better person, a better adult, like all of the really cool adults, like all the really fun ones are ones that have been through some stuff, right? Like the ones who have just like somehow escaped childhood unscathed. First of all, they're lying. Second of all, they're really boring. And so I really think that, having a little bit of a disadvantage just makes you more creative, and you don't, maybe it's also a freedom. I don't feel like I have to do it the way my dad did. And maybe some men feel like they need to model the behavior of the previous generation. Maybe that's a hindrance for them that I haven't had, so I think that there's always a positive to being in that minority in the business place, that you can look at things in a creative way and not feel like you have to, that being a businessman looks like this.
And I think to add to that is that, just to be honest, speak the truth. We don't have to. My tribe will tell me, Margaret, you like everything in a pretty box with a bow, and that is true. But what I've learned is, when you share, you can have the pretty box with a bow, but you got to tell them it was ugly putting it together some days, and that's okay. And I think if we learn to speak the truth, that life is not perfect, life is ugly, life is hard, but life is beautiful too. My grandmother's best saying is that if I wake up in the morning, I'm on this side of the dirt and can go to the bathroom on my own, it's going to be a great day. And there's some days I have to really look at that, because that's what happened. I was on this side of the dirt and I could, take care of myself. So I think that if we just speak the truth, I think and especially with social media, you know, you kind of like, if you say anything negative, they're like, oh, you're a horrible parent. You know, I could tell some parent stories and they'd probably tell me I'm the worst parent in the world. But you know, that was that day. But I think sometimes if we just speak the truth and say we're not a perfect egg, we have some cracks in us, and it's okay. It's okay to have a crack. You know, I would love to be a size two. That's not going to happen in my lifetime. I figured that out right now, so I'm okay with that now. You know, I can't turn the clock back and say, let me do my 20s. Not that I'd want to do my 20s over again. They were fabulous, but I don't want to repeat that. But you know, I just think that we have to come to a place that we're happy for each other. I am that woman in the room. I am that person in the room that if you're doing better than I am, you're living in a $10,000 or $20,000 square foot home, I'm gonna be like, can I come over and use that fabulous pool? You know, I'm gonna root for you. If you're that person that's homeless, and so I'm gonna say, hey, how can I help support you? So I want to be that cheerleader that's going to be supportive. And I think if we look at each other like that, it's not that you're a competitor. You know, we support each other. Ginger, you support me by carrying our product in your store. You know, we cross-reference each other on social media. It's a support. Now, if you measure that support, is it worth $10 million? Well, to me it is, because she's working with us. And that's why I think that, you know, we get so caught up. And I think Oprah Winfrey said that everybody wants to do this one great thing in life. Well, if we all did small things, they're going to add up to so much greatness. So for me, I look at what I'm doing every day. Some things, they will be, you know, they will be good. You know, sometimes, hey, they may be great. I don't know. I'm okay with that. But I know that if I supported someone every day, and that's my goal. I write down every day 3 things I'm grateful for, you know, and the one thing is that I help someone. And again, it doesn't have to be, I can't write a check. I would love to be Jeff Bezos' wife and be able to write, you know, billions of dollars. That ain't gonna happen, okay? You know, but if I could write a small check of hope and so forth, I think that's really important. And the last story on that is when I was serving as room mom, I would always find the kid who I knew was having a bad day that day for whatever reason at that moment. And I would make sure I embraced them. And one of the teachers kind of caught on to it like 3 months into school. And she said, thank you for that. She said, you have made a big difference. Man, you would have thought I wrote $1 million check. I felt so good.
Margaret may have frozen.
Yeah.
She felt so good she froze. Sounds like you're almost coming back, but I'm not quite getting you all the way. So. Well, while Margaret's figuring that part out, because I would love to hear the rest of that story. I do want to say we have a few minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to unmute, or if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to unmute or type them in the chat. It's up to you. I'm always super enthralled by getting the chance to listen to both of y'all speak. So this has just been super awesome for me. I was actually going to comment that I felt some relatability to how you described not having the examples for yourself, right? Just like growing up around my family with entrepreneurs and my mom being an immigrant, like there was no comparators. It was just like, oh, this is just how things work. Like it wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, well, my mom's like this other mom because my mom wasn't like that other mom, or like my dad's like this other dad because my dad wasn't like that other dad. So it's just, I guess I get to paint my own picture. And
exactly. And the freedom that gives you is actually a gift too. Some kids that you think might really have everything laid out for them, it also can be a noose, right? Or like a real straitjacket, and if it doesn't really fit them. So having that freedom is really cool.
Yeah. Margaret, I'm glad you're back. I'd love to hear the rest of the story. Yeah.
No, just, it's just about embracing where you are every day, guys. It really is. Just being kind to one another and, loving people. As I say, I don't have to love you, but I can be respectful. And I think that's just the name of the game. I can be respectful. Life is too hard going any other way. And I think if anything that COVID has taught all of us is life can be shaken up at any given time in an unbelievable way that you have no control over.
And we're still standing. I mean, the fact that I think that has reduced anxiety a lot for me is like, okay, we now know what it's like to go through this, and
Yes.
And lost some things, yes. And I know a lot of businesses didn't make it, and not through any fault of their own. It's just the landscape everywhere. I just went to LA for a business trip, and it was just so sad to see how many businesses didn't make it, because they weren't open as much as we were here, and through really no fault of their own. So I don't say that we made it and that means like we figured out something they haven't, but for those that did make it, it's like this new lease on or I guess a release of some fear of, we've made it through, and now it's, to feel a little lighter, even if it's just for a little bit before the next thing is.
That is true, Ginger. And you're right. It's I like to say in Texas, we were in the right place at the right time. We didn't come through this COVID thing unscathed, but I think those that are still standing have come out stronger, wiser, and better. And I hope some of us have, I know for me personally, I've let go of some of the smaller things. I mean, I'm like, before I worried a whole lot about certain things. Now I'm like, that will kill you quicker than anything. And I think a lot of, the testimony, like you said, Ginger, going to LA, and I've had friends in other places, a lot of small businesses just didn't make it. But I also heard a lot more small businesses are starting up. I think that's
great.
incredible. So think about that. For every business, I'm hoping, 2 to 5 years from now, for every business we've lost, we've had 2 to 5 startups.
And all that time they had during the shutdown to work on something that might not have had time for if they were still commuting and all of that.
Exactly.
Well, we're almost at time, so I just want to say thank you so much, ladies. Y'all are amazing. I was just telling Ginger that I love having both of y'all speak. It's just really enlightening, and I'm just so happy to be a part of the listening and being able to ask the questions. Is truly an honor.
And thanks for always making it so easy. I always feel like we're just chatting.
I think
Margaret
that's
and I just having coffee.
that's the way I think conversation should flow. Like the best information I feel comes from being honest and unstructured. So
thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you both. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll be releasing the video version of this later if you'd like to share it with anybody. But again, so appreciative. Thank you again. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you both.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye, Ginger. We'll see you later.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.